Okay, so you're busy. We all are these days, right? You want to stay informed on the big stuff, but sometimes the legal details can be a real headache.
Absolutely.
That's where we come in.
That's right.
We're going to break it all down today. We're taking a deep dive into some recent decisions from Judge Aileen Cannon, specifically her rulings on whether or not to release Jack Smith's special counsel report. You know, the one about Donald Trump's alleged criminal activities?
Right. Yeah, the big one.
The big one, exactly.
And for this deep dive, we're looking at a really interesting source. It's actually a transcript from a YouTube video.
Mm.
And this video, it takes a pretty strong stance on this whole situation, which makes for a fascinating discussion. You know, this report exists, right? The DOJ, the Department of Justice, wanted to release at least a version of it. But Judge Cannon, well, she stepped in and blocked certain parts of it from becoming public. So our goal today is to really unpack the arguments laid out in this YouTube transcript and get a grip on the controversies swirling around Judge Cannon's decisions.
So let's start with the beginning. The transcript lays out how Judge Cannon actually tried to block the release of the entire report, the whole thing.
Yeah, that's right. Right from the get-go. She tried to prevent any of it from seeing the light of day.
So what did the DOJ do in response to that?
Well, according to the YouTube transcript, the DOJ, they countered. They basically said, okay, fine, we'll release a version, but we're going to make sure it doesn't have any classified information in it.
It sounds like even in offering that compromise, the DOJ was pushing back a little on Judge Cannon's authority to even block those unclassified parts in the first place.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe you get from this YouTube video. The way the narrator frames it, it's like the DOJ was doing them a favor by redacting it more than actually admitting Judge Cannon had the power to halt the whole release.
Okay, so that's the first attempt to block the report. But the transcript goes on to describe a second decision by Judge Cannon, and this one gets really interesting.
Oh yeah, this is where things get spicy.
This time, she specifically blocks the release of the classified documents portion of the report. And get this, she even blocks it from the leaders of the House and Senate Judiciary Committees, and that includes the ranking Republicans on those committees.
Yeah, so not even lawmakers with a clear oversight role could see this stuff.
So what was her reasoning for that one, according to the transcript?
Well, the transcript says Judge Cannon's stated reason was about protecting the rights of the two remaining defendants in her court. She basically argues that if this classified information gets out, even to these specific congressional leaders, it could potentially violate those defendants' rights.
But the folks in this YouTube video, they have some serious issues with that line of thinking, and they specifically bring up the Mueller and Durham investigations as examples. How do those cases factor into the argument here?
Right. So the transcript, it really leans on the fact that both the Mueller and Durham reports, those were made public. And you can assume they were also shared with the relevant congressional committees. And all of that happened before all the criminal proceedings had wrapped up.
So they're saying there's a clear precedent for this.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, hey, this isn't some crazy new thing the DOJ is trying to pull here. This is how it's been done before.
And the transcripts also really pushes back on this idea that sharing this information with a limited number of congressional leaders, these are people with oversight responsibilities, not prosecutors or potential jurors, it really challenges the idea that this would actually violate the defendant's rights.
Totally. I mean, these committee members, they're not part of the legal teams. They're definitely not going to be sitting on a jury. So the transcript's point is, how could sharing this info with them really impact the legal proceedings against the defendants? It's not like it's being plastered all over the internet.
All right, let's dig into the meat of the analysis here, because this YouTube transcript, it really goes after Judge Cannon's justifications.
Oh yeah, they don't mince words.
Not at all. They call her arguments, and I'm quoting directly here, dumb, not based in any reality, factually incorrect, and dangerously misleading.
Wow, yeah, strong words.
They are not holding back.
Nope. They're clearly not buying what Judge Cannon is selling.
And they even pull some direct quotes from Judge Cannon's own decision. There's one where she says that the DOJ hasn't typically sought to disclose special counsel reports with substantive case information outside the department before the conclusion of proceedings, unless there's a specific litigation-related reason. So basically she's saying this is out of the ordinary.
Right, but then the transcript comes right back at her with that historical precedent we were talking about.
Yeah.
They specifically point to the Mueller and Durham reports again, saying, hold on a minute. Substantial information from those investigations was shared publicly and with Congress before everything was totally finished.
So they're saying she's misrepresenting what actually happened.
That's exactly how the transcript frames it. They even bring up the Starr report from the Clinton impeachment as another example of a special counsel report being shared with Congress. It's like they're trying to poke holes in Judge Cannon's whole argument by showing that she's mischaracterizing the usual way of doing things.
And there's another point that the transcript really hammers on Judge Cannon. It doesn't provide any specific examples or detailed arguments about how releasing the information to these judiciary committees would actually harm the defendant's rights.
Right, it's all very vague in general.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this broad concern about potential harm, but no concrete explanation of what that harm might actually look like. And the transcript doesn't let that slide. They call it the lack of specifics as a major weakness in her legal reasoning.
It's like they're saying, okay, you're worried about harm, but show us what kind of harm. Give us something concrete.
So let's zoom out a bit and look at the big picture. What are the main takeaways from the YouTube transcript's point of view? What's the core conflict here?
Well, the way this transcript sees it, the fundamental clash is between Judge Cannon's focus on protecting the rights of the defendants in her court and this other view held by the DOJ and really championed by this YouTube video that the public in Congress, they have a right to this information, especially when it's a matter of such huge public interest. And this other view, they point to historical precedent to back it up.
Right. They're saying this is how it's usually done. You release these reports.
Exactly. And the transcript's central argument is basically this. They believe Judge Cannon's reasons for blocking the release, especially to those judiciary committees, they're not just weak, they're downright wrong, and they go against how things have been handled in the past. The whole video really paints Judge Cannon's actions as obstructive and potentially biased against transparency.
Okay, so it's important for everyone listening to remember that this perspective, the one we've been breaking down, this is coming directly from this specific YouTube video, and it's pretty harsh on Judge Cannon. It definitely frames her decisions as biased and harmful to transparency.
Totally. And it's a perspective worth considering.
Yeah.
But it's just that, a perspective.
Absolutely. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear there are some strong and opposing views on how to handle this kind of sensitive information.
For sure. It's a tricky situation.
It really is, and it raises some tough questions, like, does the historical precedent of releasing special counsel reports to Congress, does that give the DOJ a strong argument here, like the YouTube video suggests?
That's a big one. And on the other side is Judge Cannon's concern for the defendant's rights. Is that a strong enough reason to block congressional oversight, particularly when we're talking about a limited release to key committee leaders? It's a complex balance to strike.
It really is.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to ponder. Based on everything we've talked about today, what specific criteria should a judge really consider when deciding whether or not to release information about ongoing investigations to groups like congressional committees? This goes beyond just this one case. It gets at the heart of how we balance transparency, due process, and the roles of different branches of government in our legal system.
Lots to think about, for sure. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.